Welcome to our channel where we dive into the darkest corners of reality, exploring the shadows that lurk just beyond the veil of our everyday lives. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Tonight, we bring you 3 spine-chilling college horror stories that will keep you up at night. These tales of terror, whispered among students through generations, speak of the darkness that can fester in the hallowed halls of academia. So, turn down the lights, grab your headphones, and prepare to be terrified. Our first story takes us to the darkened corridors of an aging dormitory. Its once bright facade, now weathered and worn. The building stood as a silent witness to countless stories, some joyous, others filled with sorrow. Sarah, a bright-eyed freshman, moved into room 303, unaware of its chilling history. She was excited to start her new journey, filled with hopes and dreams. From the first night, a cold, oppressive presence seemed to cling to the room. The air felt heavy, and an inexplicable chill ran down her spine. Sarah would wake in the dead of night feeling watched. The sensation was so intense that she could almost feel eyes boring into her. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, and objects moved mysteriously. It was as if the room had a life of its own, a sinister life. Books flew from shelves, and her door slammed shut with a terrifying bang. The noise echoed through the empty halls, sending shivers down her spine. One night, paralyzed by fear, Sarah heard a whisper close to her ear, hissing her name. The voice was cold and menacing, sending chills through her body. Driven to the brink, Sarah confided in her roommate Emily. She described the terrifying experiences, her voice trembling with fear. Together, they uncovered a tragic tale. A student had taken his own life in that room decades earlier. The discovery sent a chill through them both. They sought help from the campus chaplain, a kind old priest. He listened patiently, his eyes filled with concern. He agreed to cleanse the room, performing ancient rites. The ritual was long and intense, filling the room with a strange energy. When he finished, an almost palpable peace settled over the room. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of calm. The oppressive chill was replaced by a comforting warmth. Sarah felt a sense of relief wash over her, believing the ordeal was finally over. Sarah thanked the priest, her voice trembling with relief. She felt grateful for his help, hoping the nightmare was behind her. But as she prepared for bed that night, a sense of unease lingered. The room, though warmer, still held an air of mystery. As she drifted off to sleep, a sudden cold spot on her cheek jolted her awake. The sensation was sharp and unmistakable. Her heart pounded, and then she heard it again. The same chilling whisper, more insistent this time. A whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. "You can't escape me," it hissed. The words echoed in her mind, filling her with dread. Sarah's scream echoed through the empty hallway. It was a cry of pure terror, a desperate plea for help, a desperate plea lost in the darkness. The dormitory remained silent, as if absorbing her fear into its very walls. Our next tale takes us to the hallowed halls of the university library, a place where knowledge is sought and sometimes fear is found. The library, with its towering shelves and endless rows of books, holds more than just the wisdom of the ages. The library stood as a silent sentinel of learning, its towering shelves filled with countless volumes. Each book a portal to another world, another time, but within its labyrinthine aisles, a different kind of story unfolded, a story whispered among students and faculty alike. They spoke of a ghostly presence, a spectre that haunted the library's quiet corners. A figure seen out of the corner of one's eye, only to vanish when looked at directly. John, a dedicated history major, often found himself immersed in his studies late into the night. The library was his sanctuary, a place where he could lose himself in the past. One evening, he noticed a strange chill in the air. It was as if the temperature had dropped several degrees in an instant. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, an instinctive reaction to an unseen presence. He looked up, expecting to see a fellow student, but there was nothing. The silence was almost deafening. Unsettling, yet not entirely alarming, John dismissed the chill and returned to his studies. He tried to focus on the text before him, but his mind kept wandering back to the strange sensation. As the night wore on, the strange occurrences continued. The library seemed to come alive with whispers and shadows. Footsteps echoed through the silent library. They were soft, almost hesitant, as if the walker was unsure of their path. But each time John looked up, the footsteps would cease. Then came the whispers, faint, almost imperceptible, like the rustling of pages. Faint murmurs, just on the edge of hearing, seemed to emanate from the shadows. One particularly eerie night, John felt a presence behind him. It was a feeling of being watched, of not being alone. He slowly turned and came face to face with a translucent figure. His heart pounded in his chest. It was a young woman, her features pale and drawn, as if she had been drained of life. Her eyes filled with sorrow, they seemed to tell a story of loss and longing. She wore a long, flowing gown, its edges tattered and faded with age. The air grew heavy, the oppressive weight of her sorrow pressing down on John. It was as if the very air was thick with her grief. He wanted to scream, to run, but his voice caught in his throat. Fear paralyzed him, rooting him to the spot. The ghostly figure glided closer, her sorrowful gaze fixed on John. Her eyes seemed to plead for something, a silent request, but as quickly as she appeared, she vanished. The air lightened, and John could breathe again. John, shaken to his core, stumbled out of the library. The next day, John confided in his history professor. He recounted the night's events, his voice trembling with the memory. She revealed the tragic tale of the library ghost, a story passed down through generations of students and faculty. Legend had it that the ghost was the spirit of a young student who had died in a library fire a century earlier. She had been a promising scholar, dedicated to her studies. She had been searching for a rare book to save her ailing brother. Her love for her brother drove her to the library that fateful night. Now, her restless spirit wandered the library, forever searching for the lost book, a quest that had bound her to the library for eternity. John resolved to help her find peace. He felt a deep sense of responsibility to free her from her eternal search. He spent countless hours researching the library's history. Every document, every old record was a potential clue. Finally, he found a hidden chamber within the library, a place long forgotten, hidden from the eyes of the world. With renewed purpose, John returned to the library. He felt a sense of urgency, as if time was running out. He found the hidden chamber, its entrance concealed behind a moving bookcase. The air inside was thick with dust and the scent of old paper, its entrance concealed behind a moving bookcase. It was a place that had not seen light in decades, and there on a dusty shelf lay the book, the very book the young woman had been searching for. John carefully lifted the book, feeling a strange energy pulse from its pages. It was as if the book itself was alive. Feeling a strange energy pulse from its pages, the air around him seemed to hum with anticipation. He held the book aloft, whispering, "I found it. You can rest now." His voice was steady, filled with compassion, whispering, "I found it. You can rest now." The words seemed to hang in the air, filled with promise. A soft light emanated from the book, growing brighter with each passing second, and the ghostly figure of the young woman materialized. This time her features were serene. With a grateful smile, she vanished, her spirit freed. John felt a sense of peace wash over him, knowing he had helped her find her rest. Our final tale leads us to the outskirts of campus, where an abandoned fraternity house stood shrouded in darkness and whispered rumors. The house had been the subject of countless ghost stories and urban legends, each more chilling than the last. The house, once a place of revelry, now stood as a decaying monument to forgotten rituals and dark secrets. Its walls, now crumbling and covered in mold, had witnessed countless nights of laughter and camaraderie, now replaced by an eerie silence. Mark, Emily and Chris, three friends with a thirst for adventure, decided to explore the abandoned fraternity house. They had heard the stories and felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as they approached the infamous building. Armed with flashlights, they approached the house, its silhouette looming against the moonlit sky. The wind howled through the trees, adding to the sense of foreboding that surrounded them. The air grew heavy as they neared the porch, a palpable sense of dread settling over them. Each step they took seemed to echo louder than the last, as if the house itself was aware of their presence. The front door swung open with a groan, inviting them into the darkness. The sound reverberated through the empty halls, sending shivers down their spines. The stench of decay hit them like a physical blow. It was a mix of mold, rot, and something else, something almost metallic. As they stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, they were greeted by a scene of chaos and decay. The once grand interior was now a shadow of its former self, with peeling wallpaper and broken furniture. Furniture lay overturned, and empty beer bottles littered the floor. It was as if the house had been frozen in time, capturing the remnants of a long-forgotten party. The air hung heavy with a sense of unseen eyes watching their every move. Shadows seemed to dance on the walls, creating an atmosphere of unease. They moved from room to room, each one colder than the last. The temperature drop was inexplicable, adding to the growing sense of dread. In the main living area, they discovered a large, ornate fireplace. It was covered in dust and cobwebs, but still retained a sense of grandeur. Above the mantel hung a faded photograph of the fraternity brothers. The faces in the photo seemed to stare back at them, their expressions frozen in time. As Mark stepped closer to examine the photograph, he noticed a presence in the room. It was a feeling, a sense that they were not alone. Standing in the doorway was a figure. It was barely visible in the dim light, but its outline was unmistakable. It was a woman, her long black hair cascading down her back. She seemed out of place, like a ghost from another time. She wore a white dress, its fabric stained and tattered. The dress looked like it had once been beautiful, but now it was a mere shadow of its former self. She stood perfectly still, her presence radiating an aura of menace. It was as if the very air around her was charged with a dark energy. Mark stumbled back, his heart pounding. The sight of the woman had shaken him to his core. His sudden movement caught the attention of Emily and Chris. They turned their flashlights towards him, their faces filled with concern. Their flashlights danced across the room, and when they could see again, the figure was gone. It was as if she had never been there. They decided to leave, their earlier bravado replaced by a primal urge to escape. The house no longer felt like an adventure, it felt like a trap. As they made their way back through the house, the sense of being watched intensified. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind seemed to follow them. They reached the front door and it finally opened, allowing them to escape into the cool night air. The relief was palpable, but the memory of the woman in the white dress would haunt them forever. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more terrifying tales. We're constantly exploring the darkest corners of the internet and beyond to bring you the most spine-chilling stories that will keep you up at night. And remember, sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that are true. Sweet dreams.